All right, the YouTube Live is up, so we can get started whenever you all are ready.
Here I go. Okay, thank you so very much. My name is Kiba Samuel. Welcome to the July 5th, 2022 work session of the Zoning Committee of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission. Again, my name is Kiba Samuel. I chair the Planning Commission for Charlotte-Mecklenburg. I am, as of June 30th, the former chair of the Zoning Committee. Although I will continue to chair the Planning Commission, the Zoning Committee duties are now being passed to my cohort and colleague, Commissioner Gussman. Philip Gussman, many of you are familiar, is the Vice Chair of the Planning Commission and is well-versed in operations and run of show for this meeting. So I am officially informing all that for the next 12 months, he will be chairing this meeting, including this one. And I am officially now a committee member. I'm standing in for some absences here in the Zoning Committee. Thank you and welcome, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman, your Honorable Samuel. I think Kiba said it best. Welcome to the Charlotte Zoning Committee work session, July 5th, 2022. I believe next up we have some, next slide. Or do we jump into the introductions? Oh, pardon me. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll run through introductions, and I'll give you guys an update on deferrals, and then we'll jump into the agenda starting after that.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, let's jump into introductions. I'm Philip Gussman, currently serving as Vice Chair of the Commission and Chair of this committee. Let's go with Commissioner Gaston.
Hi, Melissa Gaston, Planning Commission, Zoning Committee.
And Commissioner Harvey.
R.J. Harvey, Planning Commission.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Commissioner Rhodes, Zoning Committee.
Commissioner Barbie.
Erin Barbie, Planning Commission.
Commissioner Russell.
Will Russell, Planning Commission, Zoning Committee.
Excellent. And Commissioner Samuel has already introduced herself, so we can move on to staff at this point, I think.
All right, I'll go ahead and kick us off and then turn it over to the rest of the rezoning team. I'm Dave Pettin, manage the rezoning program for the city of Charlotte.
John Kinley, rezoning staff.
Joe Mangum, planning staff.
Holly Kramer, rezoning staff.
Donna Johnson McNeil, planning staff.
Michael Russell, planning staff.
Patrick Monroe, Ncdot staff.
Walter Blackman, Ncdot staff.
Kevin Parker, Ncdot staff.
Brandon, is that it? I think that's it for your team this evening. Is that correct?
We also have Kevin Parker. He might be having some audio issues.
Kevin Parker, Ncdot staff.
Oh, there we go.
Great, thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks, Dave.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that's everybody on staff side.
That should do it. I'll just, I guess, take this quick moment to point out, to say to everybody, welcome to the committee. We have a few new members and a few returning members who've been on in past times. There's a lot of great detail and attention that we have to pay. So I appreciate everyone being here and taking on this commitment seriously. I believe we need to have be on camera when we make votes. Keep that in mind. And just a quick point of process. If we have, since the agenda is so large tonight, if we seem to be running long, there might be a point later in the meeting where we hold a group and see if we're going to push through or attempt to recess the meeting. Just putting that out there as a heads up to everybody, both staff and commissioners, and obviously viewers. Dave, I think you set to take it on from here.
Yeah, I'll just go over a list of deferrals for everybody this evening. We've got 5 listed in the agenda, but we did have a late addition, 1 more items. So item number 1, item number 2, item 3, item 4, and item 5 are all listed as requesting a deferral to August 2nd of 2022. That's our next scheduled meeting. We do have 1 more item, and actually is just item number 6. Petition 2021-141 is also requested a deferral that came in this afternoon, and that would also be a deferral to our August 2nd zoning committee meeting. So those are all the deferrals we have to have a motion on. Again, everything's moving to August 2nd, our next scheduled meeting. Thank you.
Perfect. So to be clear, we're looking for a motion to defer those.
This is Commissioner Barbie. I'll make a motion to approve the deferral of items number 1 through 6 to the August 2nd meeting.
Excellent. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Barbie, seconded by Russell, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I'll run through the vote. Commissioner Harvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaston,
Yes.
Commissioner Barbie,
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodes.
I believe she had to drop off, Mr. Chair.
Oh, no. All right. Commissioner Samuel,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
and chair votes aye as well. That's 6-0, unanimous at this point. Those deferrals are approved. Back to you, Dave.
All right, so that gets us into our first agenda item, which is item number 7. And that would be rezoning petition 2021-197 by Crescent Communities. This is a petition for just about 2 acres at the corner of Central Avenue and Hawthorne Lane. And the request is going from Mud O, which is mud optional, and TODCC, both on the site. You can see it's split zoned. There is a pedestrian overlay in this area as well. The proposed zoning is to go to TODCC EX, which is TOD district with some exceptions. The pet overlay also stays in place. Next slide. The 2040 policy map, which is what we are considering now for our land use decisions that went into effect on Friday, July 1st. So we do have the new map, new consistency statements to consider in conjunction with that map. The place type for this area is recommended for community activity center. Next slide. The proposal is to maintain the existing building there at the corner of Central and Hawthorne. You can see that in that area that says existing building to remain, but to also then redevelop the site around some of that with adaptive reuse and again, new development that would be for a minimum of about, actually provide a minimum, of 150 required public open space, 150%. That would be a minimum of 7,000 square feet. Public open space would include a minimum of 3 amenities that would meet or exceed the TOD requirements of 12 feet in both directions. Does propose that the petitioner would not be required to meet TOD ground floor activation standard for the parking structures along that frontage on Heath Court. That is one of the exceptions that they're looking for out of the TOD district. And that's mainly due to Heath Court not being a technically public fronting street. There was some effort to potentially have that abandoned, but that wasn't something that was supported. So we're moving forward with that road being intact. But because of that, that EX is required from this TOD district to not activate that area, which staff is supportive of and doesn't have any significant concerns with. The rest of the petition does note that the ground floor of that parking structure along Heath Court would be treated through some architectural means. Those things like enhanced materials, art installations, climbing vines, et cetera, could be used to kind of offset some of the structure itself. And then proposed transportation improvements would be a right-of-way dedication, as well as an 8-foot planting strip and sidewalk along Central Avenue, and also reconstructing the pavement along Heath Court, and then replacing some non-compliant ADA ramps, and also moving forward with right of way. Can you go back to the last slide, please? Also replacing, like I said, non-compliant ADA ramps, and then that existing alley that kind of cuts through the site off of Hawthorne has been also going through that petition for abandonment with CDOT. Next slide. So there were some changes made after the hearing. They were mainly to address outstanding issues and to give some clarification on the type of open space that was going to be provided. We were asking for some specific amenities and some different elements that would be incorporated. That's mainly the corner area along Hawthorne and Central, where they're going to put some public open space. That's one of the required benefits of the TOD EX district. You have to provide public benefits, and active open space is one of those. So while we're continuing to still work with them a little bit, there are some elements we'd still like some clarification on, but overall, the petition's in good shape on that front. Those are really the main changes since the hearing. Next slide. So staff does recommend approval of this petition. It is consistent with the policy map for community activity center place type. And again, it is consistent overall with the implementation of the TOD district. It's about a quarter mile of the Sunnyside station. So TOD is applicable, and we'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Excellent. Commissioners, do we have any questions?
I
This
have
is
a
Com-
question.
Oh, go right ahead.
Oh, go
Mr.
ahead,
Russell, go
Commissioner
right ahead.
Barber. I'll let Commissioner Barber go first.
Thank
Barbie,
you,
go
Commissioner
ahead.
Russell. Yeah, Dave, you'd mentioned briefly about the amenities portion. Did they clarify what they hope to bring there for the neighborhood? And in conjunction with that, with the open space, would they specifically be a park?
So it would be more of a public gathering area. They'd have some things that they're providing that could be things like streetscape paving, shade trees, shading elements, decorative plazas, streetscape lighting, pop-up vendor kiosks could be incorporated, public art and sculptures. What we've kind of gotten into is asking for some clarification on, kind of breaking some of those out, which they provided, breaking them into some minimum components where we'd have some elements that we feel are a little bit more major elements, and some of the minor elements like, uplighting, things like that, we didn't feel were things that should be like a major element of it. So we asked to kind of break it out into some categories, which they've done. So they've got some menu of options to choose from. So we don't know the exact outcomes. We just know the possibilities, and we're comfortable with how they've set it up, providing some of those provisions in the open space area.
Thank you, Dave.
I would also volunteer to say they have been very engaged with the local community on what and how that'll be activated. A lot of great ideas have been proposed. I'm not going to pretend that I know how it's going to end, but they've been very engaged so far.
Thank you, Chair.
Russell.
Yeah. So going back to this open space, so there's not going to be any vehicle access in that kind of U-shaped space at all.
No, so the open space that they're incorporating is really that corner along Central and Hawthorne. It's really right now just some excess parking in front of the existing building. They're going to turn that into the public open space and make it more of a plaza type area. They'd have some open space that wraps around that existing building, but the main elements would be at that corner of Central and Hawthorne. And then that would be offset, that parking loss would be offset by having that garage provide all the parking spaces for the rest of the site.
Okay. And second question, as it relates to the garage, how many parking spaces are required per this zoning?
So being that it's TOD, there wouldn't be a parking minimum. There would actually be a parking maximum. So I'd have to go back and look at what the max is, but there's not a minimum requirement. So they don't have a base number they'd have to meet. They just have a number they can't exceed.
Okay. And the reason I ask is I'm concerned about the amount of parking that is in this petition, especially since Central Avenue is going to be home to a streetcar. So I'm wondering, is the need for the garage being driven by planning staff, or is that being driven by what the developer wants?
That's driven mainly by the petitioner, if I recall correctly. So we're not asking for any additional parking outside of what the parking's requirements would be for TOD, but they certainly know what their building needs are and their development outcomes are. I think they're also having to work with the existing building to make sure that their tenants can have continued parking spaces for the businesses that were going to stay in that building and remain. So, but that's something that's driven mainly by the development team, and our role in that is to make sure, again, it doesn't exceed maximum, and that the design elements for a parking deck would then meet the TOD CC district requirements outside of that exception along Heath Court.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No, I have a comment. I want to recognize the value of our TOD EX, which even as we built TOD, we were like, we know there's going to be something that lies outside. And I know that I think this is the third or fourth time I voted to rezone this property in my 5 years on the commission, being the most rezoned property that I've participated in anyway. And what to do with Heath Court is, in all of these rezonings, has been a complex issue on what and how they can utilize it. And when it finally came down that it was going to have to be a road, and it was going to have to stay a road, I think this is the right adjustment, and this is the exact point and the sort of thing that we should be using EX for, to help make these efforts that are otherwise completely within the realm of TODCC, but needs this element in order to make it honestly a little more viable, make a little more sense with the space. And the letter of law just doesn't quite fit, or the letter of our code doesn't quite fit this particular property. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, it's Commissioner Samuel.
Go right ahead.
Just wanted to add that this particular petition and this 197 came to us originally public hearing back in February. It has undergone several deferrals since then, several site plan iterations, and I'm in agreement with you that this is the closest thing that works of the ones that we've seen. Thank you.
Caught me taking a sip. With no other questions, if there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on this one. And we can get that pulled up. For some of our new commissioner, for the people serving for the first time, this is a little bit different than some of our mandatory referrals, but fortunately we have a
I'll take it.
perfect experience.
So I was here before. Yeah, thank you. If you want to pull that statement up. So having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-197 as it appears before us, and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please state your name. Sorry, just.
Oh, Commissioner Harvey. I'm sorry.
Perfect. Now I thought so. I just was moved by Barbie, seconded by Harvey. We'll run through the vote. Commissioner Gaston.
Yes.
Commissioner Harvey.
Yes.
Commissioner Barbie.
Yes.
Commissioner Commissioner Samuel. My apologies.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. That's 6-0 unanimous in this situation. Let's see what else you got, Dave.
All right, turn it over to Holly for this next one.
Thank you. This site is a little over 3.5 acres, located on the northwest intersection of Orchard Circle and South Tryon, east of Interstate 77 and west of south of West Peterson Drive. And as you'll notice, it's next to petitions 2021, 218, and 225, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The existing zoning is B2 general business and R8 for single family residential. And the proposed zoning is to go to TOD-NC, Transit Oriented Development and Neighborhood Center. The adopted place type for this area is commercial, that portion shown in red, and neighborhood 1 for that portion shown in yellow. This is a conventional petition, so there is no associated site plan. As you'll see with the rezoning history map in your staff analysis in the agenda. This is next to a lot of areas being rezoned to TOD NC. It's right across from OMB and a number of other retail areas. So staff believes that this is an appropriate site to go to TOD NC. It is inconsistent with that neighborhood 1 place type as well as commercial. So if approved, this would change the adopted place type to neighborhood center, which accommodates those mixed uses that we see in TOD NC at a level of intensity that is also appropriate for TOD NC as opposed to community activity center or regional activity center, which is really more for intense land uses. So I will take any questions if you have them.
Yep, I have a few. So I thought TOD was for places where we have transit. I know that includes bus systems. So is South Tryon being considered a high frequency bus corridor? Or
So
why is this in?
Okay, so yes, TOD is applicable, and TOD NC in particular for this site is applicable when it's within a 1-mile walking distance of an existing rapid transit station or adopted alignment station. So this is within a 1-mile walk of Scaly Bark Station pretty easily. So that's why it's applicable for the TOD zoning district.
So question, when you say walking distance, is that as a crow flies or is that actual sidewalk road?
Actual sidewalks, correct, yeah.
Okay, and then another question. So it says on the staff's review that it is inconsistent with the area plan and that we're changing the place type, yet staff is recommending approval. Can you walk us through that logic, please?
Yeah, so this area is transitioning to TOD, and we believe that this is an appropriate application of TOD NC. Neighborhood 1 and the commercial place types being recommended for the area as is in the 2040 policy map are really not where the neighborhood is going, and it's also meets a number of the requirements that we have for minor map amendments. So for example, this one, if we're looking at changing a place type, we look at things such as what other place types is it adjacent to, how close is it to a light rail station. So because of its proximity to transit stations, and in particular the light rail station here, and its proximity to community activity centers, neighborhood 2 areas, and just other TOD areas, it's an appropriate location to change that policy map recommendation to be in line with TOD NC.
This is Commissioner Barbie. I have a follow-up question for you. Can you all hear me? Okay,
Go right ahead.
thank you. So you noted that this site, this zoning doesn't require a site map or site plan. And I'm curious about the future of the neighborhood 1 designation. So is it my assumption that this petitioner eventually will develop this land to be consistent with the neighborhood as it is, meaning possibly put single family or something that wouldn't change the character of the current neighborhood? And if so, how can we be how do we keep an eye on that actually happening?
Don't know that I caught all of your questions. So could you rephrase, are you asking whether when the policy map, if the rezoning gets approved, how that changes the policy map?
So correct me if I'm wrong. So it looks like they're going to have a commercial front on South Tryon, and then on behind it in that L shape, neighborhood 1 designation, which I would assume they would put some sort of residential at some point in time. Is that correct?
So this is the adopted place type map that we're showing on screen. If this petition were approved, the portions outlined for the petition that are shown in yellow and red would transition into neighborhood center, which is a pink layer. So it's not shown on here. This is just showing, that's the existing zoning, but the adopted place type map is just showing what's currently approved for the area under the 2040 policy map, which went into effect last Friday. So if it were approved, this rezoning would change the place type to a neighborhood center, which accommodates a number of mixed uses, but it's really meant to transition from areas like this along major corridors, but into generally residential areas. So it has retail, a mixture of retail and residential uses predominantly.
All right, just keep bearing with me. Thank you.
It was a very good question now. As we are living in the world for the last 4 days of the new policy map, we are all going to take a little bit of adjustment. The good news is the bulk of us have been spending the last year working on exactly these issues, and we should be able to come up to speed quickly.
Yes, thank you so much, Chair.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair, please. This is Commissioner Samuel. In keeping with a bit of consistency here. So we had a group of rezonings in our last work session at the top of June that similar. Mr. Carmichael very graciously shared some information about a neighborhood meeting that was not required, but that the petitioner held anyways. I want to reiterate that this is not an indictment against this petitioner or against this particular petition. However, again, in keeping with consistency, I just want to raise a little bit of a caution flag that these three petitions, Holly, you mentioned at the top that we would later talk about 25 and 18, I believe, are the two that are closely related logistically. These groupings of petitions that in and of themselves seem somewhat harmless, collectively definitely sounds an alarm for me. Again, not an indictment against this petitioner, the petitioner's agent, or this particular petition. But again, collectively, I am sounding the alarm. The rapid change along this particular corridor where it starts to invade single family. And the alarm is simply that the notifications, right, for these petitions only goes to a business owner or landowner, homeowner. And many people in this particular corridor are not homeowners. So the likelihood of there being some misinformation or missing information from the people actually occupying these neighborhoods is possible. And again, just wanted to sound just put up a little bit of a caution sign there. Again, this petition in and of itself, probably I wouldn't even bat an eye, but collectively, because we've got these three here, we had another three last week. I don't know what the total acreages are, but they're in this corridor between, I think it's between Comma, Peterson, South Tryon, that whole area. So again, just a comment for me. Thank you.
Very good point. Any other comments, questions from commissioners?
No, I'll just make one point of reference. This was a petition along with the other two that are in this area that Holly mentioned, 218 and 225, that were part of the petitions that have to come back for an updated consistency statement. So these petitions were considered, and as Ms. Samuel pointed out, they were reviewed and looked at a previous zoning committee meeting. So they are the same petitions. I don't know if that was something that we were looking at them saying these were three new petitions in the same area. They are the same ones that went through zoning committee. I believe it was back in May. They were deferred from the June decision group at council, and so they're back here just to get essentially a new consistency statement against the 2040 plan. So they are the same three petitions that came before the zoning committee back in May. Just wanted to make sure I clarified that.
All three of them had already moved through. These are just the ones where we just being perfectly clear, making sure everyone understands. These have moved through the zoning committee already. is potentially a reaffirmation of these under the new policy map.
That's correct. Yeah, 217, 218, and 225 on the agenda were all part of that group that has already been considered once and just essentially needs a new consistency statement against the 2040 plan. And all were recommended, I believe. This one, I think all three of those, I think, were recommended in one motion favorably.
Okay. I
do have one more question. I
right
noticed that since we've adopted 2040 plan, that a lot of these rezonings have come with an attachment called goals relevant to rezoning determinations. And so it gives a list of the 10 comp plan goals. And then next to it, it has a box that says relationship to Charlotte Future 2040 comprehensive plan. And I noticed in some boxes there are checks, and in some boxes there are X's, and then and yet others they're NA. So could staff explain what the checks, the X's and NAs work and why this document is important in rezoning?
Sure. So the checks are goals that are facilitated by the rezoning petition or could be facilitated by the rezoning petition. The X are goals that aren't met through the rezoning, and the NA would be goals that wouldn't necessarily apply to the rezoning because it wouldn't be a if it's a commercial petition, it's not going to be applicable for the petition to provide affordable housing or preserve affordable housing. If it's a petition that isn't a job creator, then typically you'll see an NA for I believe it's goal number 9 or goal number 8 or 9. I can't remember which one it is. So it's just relevant to whether or not that petition is facilitating the goals, isn't facilitating the goals, or that the goal just wouldn't apply to the type of rezoning that's being considered.
Okay, that was helpful because I noticed that this petition did have that attachment, and in this case, it had looks like 5 checks. So 4 checks. So I was just curious. Thank you.
Commissioner Ross, you'll see that on every petition, as Dave pointed out, just to highlight its relevancy to goal achievement for 2040.
This is Commissioner Barbie. Dave, you mentioned that these 3 were presented as a slate prior to. Was there a reason we didn't present them as a slate this time around?
I don't know if we presented them as a slate or if we bunched them up into one motion for the consistency statement. I don't know if Holly or committee member Samuel.
Yeah, I presented 2017, and then the zoning committee mentioned that 217, 218, and 225 are all in pretty close proximity. So it was the zoning committee recommendation that we vote on them all together. And for the purposes of today, it may just be easier to go through them one by one, considering the new policy maps and new zoning committee members. It's whatever is up to you all.
So making sure that we mark the record that we do really need to see the notification system perhaps continue to improve for these rezonings all over our city. Would anyone I would entertain a motion for either the slate or individually.
Well, since I brought it up, I certainly support the slate, considering it's already gone through our WISE committee from before, and staff recommends approval for all 3 of these. And in the interest of time, we've got a lot to get through. So unless commissioners feel very differently, I would like to present these 3 as a slate, and that would be 17, 18, and 25. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It'd be 217, 218, and 225. Those are items 8, 9, and 11 on the agenda.
Dave, so just to be clear, these are back before us, not because we grouped them together on the first go around. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have several petitions back in front of zoning committee this evening that were deferred from decision that have already gone through zoning committee because they need a new consistency statement that aligns or provides that recommendation against the 2040 policy map versus an old adopted area plan that's no longer in effect. And this is this is one of those. I think there were 7 or 8 that have to go back that we have on the agenda this evening.
And this is Commissioner Barbie again. They did send us those early this morning, so we were able to review the previous documentation and commentary from the last zoning group. So we were up to speed.
So if we can get, if we have a motion, I know you'll have to read the actual statement.
I can, yeah. And if people agree or disagree, but I will say, having reviewed the petitions and considered the consistency statements prepared by staff to approve the petitions, I move that we recommend the approval of petitions number 2021-217, 2021-218, 2021-225 as it appears before us, and the adoption of the consistency statements as they appear before us.
Properly moved. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Gaston. I second that motion.
Moved by Barbie, seconded by Gaston. I'll go to the roll call. Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
Commissioner Samuel.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes. Oh, pardon me. Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
And Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Those 3 are moved forward with the recommendation. Next up, I am looking.
That would take us to item number 10, which is John Kinney.
Okay, this is 2.65 acres located on the south side of Kenilworth Avenue, west of Harding Place, on the east side of East Moorhead Street. As you can see there, the rezoning boundary includes an existing multifamily building there at the corner. Next slide. It is currently zoned MUD OPED, mixed use development optional pedestrian overlay. Proposed zoning is just a site plan amendment to that approved rezoning plan. The 2040 policy map recommends community activity center for the site. So the proposal would increase the number of allowed dwelling units from 380 to 388. That does increase the density from 143 units to 147 units per acre. In order to accomplish adding those additional 8 units into an existing, basically existing already built structure, what they are proposing to do would be to essentially allow the area that was intended for ground floor commercial space to be converted into residential units. And that's generally indicated in the area there in the corner that's highlighted in purple on the last slide. There's just the more detailed site plan layout, floor plan, and there wasn't really any changes since the hearing. Staff recommends approval of the petition. It is consistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation for Community Activity Center. Take any questions?
Any questions or comments?
This is Commissioner Gaston. I just had one question. With the increased density and they're taking the commercial space to make it residential, does that alleviate there's no commercial space, or does it just reduce the amount of commercial space? I didn't see that. Just wanted to see.
So it basically provides them the option to do either or, basically giving them more uses for that space. If they did convert them to residential space, then obviously there wouldn't be any commercial space on the site.
Thank you.
And quick question, you may or may not know the answer to this, but do we know if the new residential units will be market rate?
I don't know the answer. It's not specified in the rezoning plan.
Be presumed.
Yeah, I would say that they would be market rate. There's not any commitment for any of the units to be affordable, so that would lead us to believe they'd be market rate.
I figured as much. I just curious if that was part of the review or not.
This is a weird one. I remember the hearing back a few months ago, and it's a challenging situation when a piece of property like this sits for years that it has without being leased. Even though I think activation on that corner is what we'd all prefer to see happen. This is a challenge. There's no doubt. Any other questions? Did we have any recent changes to this one? This was not one of the ones we needed to review for it.
That's correct. Yeah, this hasn't been in front of zoning committee yet. I think it was deferred before it came to zoning committee. So this is the first time it's in front of the committee.
Correct.
Yeah, and there hasn't been any changes to the plan since the hearing.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm ready to move, Mr. Chair. This is Commissioner Samuel. Move to approve.
Excellent. Thank you.
Having reviewed petition 2021-219, July 5th, petition is found, I move that we approve petition 2021-219 in its consistency statement. It's trying to be consistent with the 2040 policy map based on information on staff analysis. And this petition we find to be reasonable and in public interest.
Excellent. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second, Commissioner Russell.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Samuel, seconded by Russell. Properly moved. I'll go to the vote. Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Samuel.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Moving on to, pardon me, still moving between too many screens. Item 11, petition 2021-225 by Boulevard Real Estate Advisors. It looks like we have Holly on this one.
So that was the one that we lumped together with 217 and 218.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely correct. All right, rezoning petition 2021-238 by Lennar Carolinas LLC. And we are with Magcom on that one. Joe?
Thank you. This is approximately 5.1 acres on the south side of NC Music Factory Boulevard, adjacent to Elmwood Cemetery and near the NC Music Factory Entertainment Complex. Current zoning is I2. Proposed zoning is MUD O. The 2040 policy map identifies this parcel as a regional activity center. The proposal is for 7,500 square feet of non-residential uses. That is the arrow pointing at the adaptive reuse in the site plan, as well as 82 single-family attached dwelling units. The non-residential uses would be in adaptively reusing and a building there, as I mentioned, there, the kind of top part of your screen. All MUD uses would be allowed with the exception of gas station, car wash, self-storage building, and accessory vehicular drive-through window. There's an optional provision to deviate from the typical streetscape standards along NC Music Factory Boulevard due to the railroad right-of-way. Building height would be limited at 55 feet. The Johnson Street and 9th Street rights-of-way would be abandoned or proposed to be abandoned and would be limited to pedestrian and bicycle use. although vehicular access to the cemetery towards the bottom of the site plan would be maintained. The number of dwelling units per building would be limited to 6, and there'd be a 6-foot tall aluminum fence and 10-foot wide landscape buffer area on the southeastern property boundary. Since the public hearing, the petitioner has addressed comments related to transportation, the environment, and as well as highlighting confirming an evergreen screen for that 10-foot buffer that's at the bottom of the site plan against the adjacent mill property. The petition is consistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation, and staff recommends there are no outstanding issues at this point. Staff recommends approval. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, commissioners, I know this is might be an interesting one right next to the mill there. Any questions or comments for staff?
Yeah, can we go back to the map, please? So based on the location and the challenges of accessing the site, staff has recommended approval of this. Why?
Thank you. So it's consistent with the Regional Activity Center recommendation from the policy map. It also provides missing middle housing and a bit of a transition from the mill property to both the cemetery as well as the music factory complex.
So wait a minute, how is this missing middle housing?
Single family attached housing would be considered a missing middle.
So we're going to put missing middle housing next to a flour mill, a railroad line, and a cemetery, and then on the other side, an entertainment center. I just think that's a terrible look for the city to want to push missing middle housing in probably the worst plot of land that you could find for residential. I mean, I have a lot of problems with putting residential housing here behind essentially a flower plant. So you know you're gonna have issues with air quality, with noise. I don't know that I can't support that. It's just a bad place for residential housing. Thank you.
Commissioners, anyone else? If not, I have a question, and I think it's likely to come up later on tonight even. And I know we have all of this tagged as Regional Activity Center, thanks to the policy map, which we've all worked on and understand its limitations, including one of which being that it's not specifically a parcel specific recommendation. With all that said, I know one of the things going way back in planning, we try and avoid putting use types that don't work well together next to each other. How is this not putting residential right next to industrial, and a pretty heavy industrial use actually, even at that? Joe?
I mean, you're correct. It is putting residential in that general area. We also have, I think we've had a rezoning approved back in 2019 or 2020 for a high-rise apartment building just across Smith Street on the other side of the same use.
Correct.
That was back in January 2020. I'm looking at the plan just to see what the unit count was.
Yeah, I recall voting for it.
Yeah, it was up. That was like 350 units on that side, and then we do have residential on the other side of NC Music Factory through some other rezonings over the years. So you know, certainly it's always a challenge when you've got those uses located next to one another. It's something that we certainly have some general concerns about as well, but long-term policy, I think we see that, you know, if that use continues, you know, that may, you know, continue some of those concerns. If it at some point transitions to, you know, something that then further supports the activity center, then, you know, long-term, that may be, you know, those concerns could potentially, you know, alleviate themselves. But, you know, certainly we're not just not aware of what those challenges can be, but I think we also know that we've got, you know, programming for some types of mitigation. This one certainly is closer than we've probably seen some others, but, you know, I think there's, you know, some challenges that are going to be inherent with the project. But I think overall staff was supportive of, you know, the implementation from the policy standpoint, but certainly that's what the committee's role is and city council's role is to, you know, review it independently and make recommendations accordingly.
Very true. And thank you for the good opportunity to bring on board all of our new members. Any other commissioners have a comment or question?
Yeah, this is
I do.
Commissioner Barbie.
Go ahead.
Oh, is that Commissioner Gaston? You go ahead. I've spoken about a lot today.
Thank you, Commissioner Gaston. I have a question about, you indicated that this would be the missing middle because it was townhomes or attached single family homes. So townhomes, is that just because of the location that is considered the missing middle, or is anything that's a townhouse considered a missing middle? I think I need that clarification.
That refers more
I
to
think
the housing
I think the
type.
goal is, yeah, it's more the housing type, and I think it's more referring to the goal number 2 in the plan about neighborhood diversity and presence of middle density housing as townhomes. I don't know if missing middle is, it may be more of the middle density housing that's referenced in goal number 2 of the comp plan.
Okay, so it's not the cost, it's the density. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify that. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Commissioner Gaston, I'm so glad that you asked that question because that was right in line with what I was going to ask as far as affordability, right? But my statement is just all coming back to me from my last zoning, where my soapbox was the calculation accuracy for CMS schools. I'm concerned that we're putting 82 single-family attached dwelling units in a location, and we're stating that it's only going to increase students by 5 in the surrounding areas. So I know CMS has talked to us before, but now that we have our new place types, we got UDO coming, I'd love to revisit with them how they have updated their policies to be able to match, because I'm continually concerned that these numbers aren't accurately going to reflect the type of people and families that are going to be moving into these locations, thus providing strain on our schools and not consistency with how we prepare for that and how they budget for that. So I'm glad to be back on zoning so I can get back on this soapbox. Please know that I will continue to bring this up. And CMS, I'm asking for a more concrete explanation for how you come up with these numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barbie. Any other questions, comments? At this point, I'll point out to our commissioners that we will need a motion, whether it's approve, deny, or defer for any of these that are before us tonight.
This is Commissioner Barbie. I will make a think that this is, I think it's necessary. So I'll move forward with that. And if anyone disagrees, we'll go from there. So having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-238 as it appears before us. And the consistency as
All right, I think I got that. Properly moved by Commissioner Barbie. Do I have a second? Don't see any.
The silence speaks for itself, Chair.
I think so. I think so. That dies. Well, going once. If anyone wishes to second, please notify us. Going twice. Going 3 times. Without a second, that motion dies. I would entertain a replacement motion, perhaps.
Yes, I move to deny, and I don't see the denial wording on.
There was a copy sent to you earlier that you can replace the numbers with.
Yep, that's what I'm trying to pull up. I'm on a second screen, so bear with me.
Understood. Hey, we're all adjusted to it.
Where did it go?
Last time I did this, we still had paper in front of us.
Well, at least I could shuffle through the papers and find it, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. So I will offer a motion to deny this petition is found to be, I guess, inconsistent with the consistent and inconsistent with the 2040 policy map based on the information from staff analysis and public hearing.
So we would normally include in there any additional information that might be formative or helpful to council and staff going forward as to the specifics. Now we can craft this a little bit together. If anyone else has a comment, if you want to lead with a couple of comments, and other staff can add or suggest pieces, since it is your motion, you can help control the recommendation on this.
Okay. Well, I would just like to add that the concern is environmental, with putting much needed density and dense housing next to a industrial plant with a flower plant that gives me concern for air quality. And I don't know that a 10-foot buffer would solve that.
Sounds good. Did any other commissioners have anything that they would like to volunteer to add to this consistency statement? Hearing none. Dave, do you have that? I assume you're.
Yeah, so essentially the recommendation is that it's been, reviewed and considered. It is consistent, but so it's however, we find this petition to not be reasonable in the public interest. And then the information that was just provided in regard to the proximity to the adjacent use and the buffers being provided not being adequate enough, environmental concerns, air quality concerns that were mentioned earlier. I think those were the bullet points that we would pull into an alternative consistency statement to then present back as the zoning committee's recommendation to council.
Correct. And the only thing I'll add to that is I'd like to add noise to it if it's acceptable to Commissioner Russell.
That is acceptable.
I walked the project and you could barely have a conversation, especially if a train happened to be there as well. Excellent.
Thank you.
All right.
Now we just need a second, I guess.
Correct. Yes. I need a second now for that.
Commissioner Harvey, second.
Commissioner Harvey seconded. Moved, pardon me, moved by Russell, seconded by Harvey. I'll move to the roll call. Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
And to be perfectly clear, you're voting yes to decline this.
Yes, I'm voting yes to decline. Yes, correct. Yes.
Perfect. Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Nay.
Commissioner Samuel.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. That is 5-1 to accept the inconsistency or to accept the denial. Too many double negatives. All right.
And so, yeah, we would need a minority statement from the lone vote against that motion.
Right.
This is Commissioner Barbie. So in looking at the staff recommendation as well as the location, I don't see any outstanding enough issues to deny this. I understand the environmental challenges. It feels anecdotal at best, simply because I don't have evidence that the air quality is challenged in this area. And also, I think that with the limited land usage that we have in Charlotte, we're going to be forced to think creatively for land usage to create more opportunities for housing. So that is where I stand. I look forward to it coming before us again.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 13. That's rezoning petition 2021-244 by Juarez Silva. And it looks like we're back with Joe.
Thank you. It's approximately 1 acre located on the south side of Cindy Lane near the intersection with Bowline Drive. Current zoning is R4 and proposed zoning is I1. The 2040 policy map recommends neighborhood 1 for this site. And while it is inconsistent with the place type recommendation, the majority of the properties on the south side of Cindy Lane are zoned industrial and also already developed with industrial uses. And the one parcel that's to the east that is currently developed with residential uses will be buffered against the industrial proposed industrial development in accordance with the zoning ordinance requirements. Staff recommends approval and would be happy to take any questions.
This is Commissioner Barbie. Actually, this question is geared to Commissioner Samuel. Last time when this came forward to the zoning committee, you had a minority opinion on approval on it. And I'd like to hear more about how you came to that conclusion.
Thank you, Commissioner Barbie. As you just pointed out, and we're reminded that we're in desperate need. That's exactly what has been provided since most of this industrial development has occurred in Charlotte and on Cindy Lane. So we've taken pretty much industrial land and created, there's 3 different housing developments across the street that is currently under development. So the approval of this petition would erode now the barrier between industrial and residential. And I would be against eliminating that buffer, that existing buffer. And that was the basis for my minority vote last month. That tree buffer there, like I said, yes, we've got Cindy Lane. It's 2 lanes, I believe, with a turn loading lane there. But that landscape buffer there, to me, it's too important to lose due to the residential now that we've added already into that residential area.
Thank you, Commissioner Samuel.
Of course, thank you.
And specifically, you're talking about the residential adjacent to it, correct? That multifamily there? Or are you talking about across the street? Commissioner Samuel. Just making sure
So the neighboring multifamily, there's a single family home, and then there's some structures behind that single family home. If you're talking about that orange square that's in your map,
right?
Cindy Lane, however, thank you, Joe. Across Cindy Lane, though, there's a few different townhome and single family developments that are currently under construction. So we've already taken some of this industrial land here and made it residential. And I am not in favor of eliminating the landscape buffer now that exists between those residential homes that we've added.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm following you with that, Commissioner Samuel. You're saying that this yellow square next to what looks to be a housing compound as neighborhood 2, you're saying that we need to keep that yellow and orange square? Is that what you're advocating for? I just want to make sure I understand you.
This orange square here where the arrow is right there, that's the least of my concern. I should say it is concern because there is single family there. I'm not sure exactly what's behind that single family, those 2 linear structures. However, across the street where you see the green and yellow, that green area there, there are a few different townhome and single family home developments currently under construction. So you see that here. So I am not in favor of eliminating the landscape buffer. I'm not considering Cindy Lane to be a buffer at all. So that orange square is not the highest of my concern. It's what we have built instead of industrial in this area across the street, across Cindy Lane.
This is Commissioner Barbie. I have a follow-up question for staff. Did the petitioner state what exactly this will become once it's industrial?
So they put out some different ideas of what they'd like to do, but given that it's conventional, it's open to any I-1, but I know that the petitioner talked about a location for their personal business, as well as potential opportunity to provide some space for one or two other businesses within like a smaller just office building on that location. But the I-1 was more needed for some storage of materials and goods, I believe, related to some contractor offices. So, but again, if it was rezoned to I-1, it could be any number of uses under the I-1 district, but that was their intent. It's an individual petitioner. So again, they'd be able to do anything under that I-1, but I know their main outcome was just to have a location for their own small business and potentially support a few other small businesses as well.
Thank you, Dave. I struggle with this one goal area that it meets if we don't have specificity for what's going into that industrial space. It feels like a very gray or dotted line, right? If we're saying that we're happy that it would create some resilient economic opportunity and upward mobility, but we don't actually define what that is, I have a hard time hearing Commissioner Samuel and supporting this and saying, yeah, we do need more opportunities for people to co-locate near places that can provide jobs, careers, and education for skill levels, but we're saying that may or may not happen. Am I correct?
That's correct. And I probably might have, depending on how the conditional zoning came through, might be able to at least see a bit more detail to be more supportive. But in a conventional format, no, I'd be completely against this particular petition.
Yeah.
Well, I would, and I'm gonna take the opposite tact on that one, mainly because the area around this rezoning is already manufacturing and logistics. It already has an industrial use. So this piece of land really wants to be M&L or industrial. It doesn't want to be residential. And while Commissioner Samuel is saying that Cindy Lane is not a buffer, it really is, because we've allowed for denser housing across the street from it. I would be more concerned about approving this petition if this were a corporation or out of town group or something like this. But seeing that it is an individual and seeing that this is only a small piece of land, you're talking about an acre. If you think about it, that's 4 houses, 4 single family homes, honestly and truthfully. And to put that into a small business, because that's what it's going to be at an acre, I don't think that that's outside the a gross misuse of land or the condition. Actually, I think it's even more consistent than what staff has it labeled now as N1.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Commissioner Russell. I do agree that this is already existing I-1. However, to me, this landscape buffer here was left intentionally when these other buildings were created. So I stand by my position to deny this petition. Let's put this up for vote, Mr. Chair.
Certainly.
I have a question really quickly, and please remind me if I'm not remembering correctly, but this is Commissioner Barbie. Are the petitioners present to provide us, like, can we ask a question of the petitioner? Are they here?
Staff?
Holly, do we have Mr. Silva on as an attendee? I know.
Yes, we
think we
do.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Barbie, and thank you for the caveat of getting readjusted. So in order for us to hear from petitioner, we'd have to have a motion
Okay.
Suspend the rules, and before that motion is voted on, you have to have a specific question or inquiry to make to the petitioner. Remembering though that this is a conventional plan.
Okay.
There's very
Yeah,
little.
thank you for clarifying that, Committee Member Samuel. I think the question would not be able to be related to what do you intend to do with the
Correct.
property or what's your intended outcome? Because we may be able to get that information, but without it being a condition of the approval, it could be anything again under that I-1 zoning district.
Well, Dave, you saw where I was going, so I withdraw my question.
I just didn't want to get us into that scenario,
Right.
so just making sure we're all on that same page.
But you
Dave.
gotta keep us on track. Thank you.
Dave, one question related to the conventional nature of this. What is or anyone on staff really, what is the buffer normally for a conventional I-1 that's adjacent to neighborhood 2?
I'm trying to take a look at that now. I know there is some buffer requirements, even if there
Right.
is a road between the two.
No, I'm specifically thinking what is going on with, because they're going to even have to buffer to the other side of the street. I know the road buffer is relatively limited and probably is met by most of our normal setbacks. But I was even going to say they're going to be severely limited on what they could do on this property between that neighborhood 2 being adjacent and what buffer requirement might be there, if I remember right. But again, I'm deferring to staff to fill in that gap. I'm trying to keep talking.
They would need to provide a buffer that's based on whatever probably the most intense buffer, but then of course it's relative to the size of the parcel in terms of the width of the buffer. So I don't know if somebody has an exact answer on staff side, but I know that, yeah, they will have to provide that buffer to the R&I and MF adjacent to it, and it should be a fairly significant one. And so that would remain intact. And then, yeah, there would be some buffer requirements along Cindy Lane to those residential uses across the street as well.
Okay, excellent. But without any other questions, I'd entertain a motion if anyone's up for making one. Again, approve, deny, defer.
Move to deny, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. All right.
Um,
Motion by Samuel.
Dave, it's been a minute since I've actually made a motion.
Understood. I know the feeling.
I'm doing this great. In review of petition number 2021-244, although the petition is the petition is inconsistent with the neighborhood 1 place site recommendation 24 policy map. And I move that the zoning committee recommend denial of this petition. Is that sufficient, Dave? Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement, I move that we deny petition 2021-244.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Barbie. I'll second.
Moved by Samuel, seconded by Barbie. Going to the roll call. Commissioner Russell.
Nay.
Again, this is okay. Nay. Commissioner Samuel.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
And chair votes nay. So we are 4-2 on that. And Commissioner Russell, do you want to take a crack at a statement? Minority statement.
Yes. While deemed inconsistent with the 2040 plan, it is consistent with the growth of small business and consistent with the development pattern of the area.
And I second that with emphasis on the development pattern of the area.
We don't know that it's consistent with small business because this is a conditional plan.
Oh, I would disagree. With it being only an acre in size, it definitely screams small business. No large business is going to come in on an acre property and zone it I-1. financially doesn't make any sense.
All right. So good for the minutes, but for our statement, let's keep that last bit out, perhaps. Dave, do you have enough?
Yeah, I think my only question is the rationale for the initial recommendation that carried to recommend denial of the petition. What's the rationale for that?
Good
'Cause
point.
our rationale was for approval, so we would need separate points for the denial motion.
Good point.
Environmental impacts of noxious uses, in I-1, in proximity to residential infill here, and the elimination of the landscape buffer.
Thank you.
All right. Moving ahead, looking at rezoning petition 2021-249 by Mill Creek Residential. And back to Joe.
Thanks. It's approximately 25.5 acres located on the west side of Steel Creek Road, south of Sledge Road. Current zoning is R3. Proposed zoning is MX2 and NS. The 2040 policy map recommends neighborhood 1 for the site. The proposal was for 160 attached and or detached dwelling units, with a density of 6.28 DUA, and up to 7,700 square feet of retail and or office uses. That's in the peach shaded area on the site plan. Following uses will be prohibited in the NS area: accessory drive-throughs, automobile service stations, equipment rental and leasing, funeral homes and embalming and tattoo establishments. They're requesting the following innovative provisions: internal streets will have public access easements with a cross-section of two 10-foot lanes and 2'6" curb and gutter, or 25-foot back of curb to back of curb. No minimum lot size or width. A minimum building separation of 7 feet. Public street frontage and private street frontage would not be required. Setback from private street A would be 16 feet from back of curb, and for streets B and C would be 14 feet from back of curb with an 8-foot planting strip and 6-foot sidewalk. A 30-foot setback will be provided from Steel Creek Road. Transportation improvements include a 50-foot right-of-way dedication for Steel Creek Road from the Steel Creek Road center line, 12-foot multi-use path along Steel Creek Road, and left and right turn lanes on Steel Creek Road at intersection with private street C. Architectural commitments include blank wall limitations, as well as usable porches and stoops as predominant features. And 10% of the site would be reserved for open space with amenities. Since the public hearing, they have addressed several comments related to site and building design, as well as the environment and transportation. Decision is consistent with the neighborhood 1 place type recommendation, and staff recommends approval. With that, I'll take any questions.
I have a question. I noticed they have a fairly wide back of curb to back of curb, and then looking at the drawing, they're providing on-street parking. Is that something that the petitioner did, or is that was something that staff asked for?
I will defer that to my colleagues in Ncdot.
Yeah, good evening, Kevin Parker here. Usually with density like this, we accommodate for parking with that local, that cross section you're seeing there is our local residential wide section to accommodate for visitor parking and any other parking that may be needed to suit the site. So that is our standard cross section that we see in residential developments.
Okay, so the roads were widened to allow for on-street parking.
Correct.
Yeah, I'll hold my fire on that. I think sometimes we get too enamored with trying to park cars, and instead of building places for people. And I wish that we would consider more how people move and connect to a space rather than how they park and where their car goes. So that's just a comment. Thank you.
Any other questions? I assume at this level of density, it didn't generate a traffic study or anything. Is that correct?
That is correct. It was under our threshold to necessitate a traffic study.
Right. And are they providing, I'm trying to tell, I see the stoplight there shown on Steel Creek Road. And we've had a number of rezonings in this area. Are we,
So what you're seeing there is the overlay of the future Ncdot Steel Creek Widening project.
okay.
And so we had them overlay that to ensure they're accommodating for that within their site. So
Okay.
so they're not building right up to where that future roadway will be.
I got you. All right. And I do remember reading about that project, but I was trying to recall, is that there? But thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
No, Mr. Chair, I'll just comment for CDOT. Thank you for that overlay. It's very helpful. Move to approve.
Go right ahead.
Having reviewed petition 2021, I'm sorry, hold on, Dave.
Coming. There it is.
Having reviewed the petition, consider consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition. I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021249.
Commissioner Harvey, second.
Excellent. Thank you. Moved by Samuel, seconded by Harvey. I'll go to the roll call. Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Samuel.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well. That carries 6-0.
And Mr. Chair, just let me add,
Yes.
view the petition and consider the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition. I move that we recommend approval of petition 2021249 as it appears before. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm warming up.
So we're all in that position. All right, moving on to the next petition. I'm showing it as number 15, rezoning petition 2021-079 by Piedmont Capital. And we are back to Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2021-079. This is the last petition that's coming back through that's already been considered by the zoning committee previously. Just wanted to throw that out there. The rest after this will be brand new, haven't been considered or heard before. So this will be our last one of that. This petition is just about 7.8 acres. It's on North Wendover Road, just west of Monroe Road and east of Randolph Road. Next slide. Next slide. So the proposed zoning is B1 conditional and the, current zoning, and then the proposed zoning is neighborhood services and B2 conditional. The policy map does recommend commercial at this site. Next slide. The proposal for the petition is to allow uses in the NS district for the existing shopping center and also to allow 3,500 square foot limited service EDE with the drive-through. And then a 500 square foot outdoor seating area for a portion of an existing retail building. and then allow for a new out parcel with a proposed 4,000 square foot EDE and a drive-through and 750 square foot outdoor area. So the new one is the drive-through that faces Wendover Road. The existing one is the one that's kind of turned to its side there. That says EDE with drive-through on the bottom left side of the plan. The proposal also would construct new internal pedestrian sidewalks from both of those EDE uses to North Wendover Road. New parking areas would be in the rear of the main building, so they wouldn't be out in front. Does propose installation of a traffic signal at Beale Street and Wendover Road. That's just right at the bottom of the screen there. Also constructs a 12-foot wide multi-use path per the Charlotte Bikes policy along the frontage. And then specifies exterior building materials, minimum transparency on upper floors, and limits expansive blank walls. And also notes that new buildings would present a front or side facade to the public streets. And also illustrates a 5-foot wide planting area with evergreen shrubs along portions of the property line. As staff does recommend approval of this petition, it is consistent with that 2040 policy map, which recommends commercial uses for the subject property. We'll be happy to take any questions. I think, like I mentioned, this one had already gone through lots of conversation on this petition, so we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have on this one. Thank you.
Hi, Dave. This is Commissioner Barbie. I do agree that it looks like it went through a lot of conversation during the last committee meeting around this. I have 2 questions for you. I don't know what EDEE stands for, so if you can clarify that. And the second question is, it looks like the majority of commissioners opted not to approve this recommendation. So if you can speak to why that was, or even Commissioner Samuel, because you were there.
Yeah, I'll defer the latter to Commissioner Samuel, but EDE is an eating, drinking, and entertainment establishment. So it's just kind of short for restaurant or another type of entertainment establishment, but that's what EDE stands for.
Oh, it could be a fast food restaurant.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Samuel?
Thank you, Commissioner Barbie. So primarily with the creation, adoption, and support for the Planning Commission's own environmental statement. Over the past 12 months, we've seen many petitions come through requesting either additional drive-through or the construction of an original drive-through. And this is one of those petitions. Seeing as though drive-throughs don't really support our adopted sustainability statement, that's primarily where the discourse was around, is that point. I think we all acknowledged that this particular area needs some infusion. We would just like to see it without drive-through establishments.
Thank you. Just to follow up to that, I'm having a little bit of confusion around, was there a bank there before? And the bank moved and there's no longer a financial institution, but this could be a financial institution? Help me there.
That's correct. So if you can go back to the site plan slide, please, Emma. One more. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, the bank was the building there on the lower portion of the site, kind of that bottom plan where it's EDE with drive-through that's kind of turned sideways. So yeah, there was a bank branch there. It was a state employees credit union that's moved to a new location down on Monroe Road. So there was a drive-through there. This proposal would be to essentially upfit that bank. And instead of it being a financial institution, it would be allowed to be a new EDE with a drive-through. So essentially changing the bank drive-through to a possible EDE drive-through. The other EDE with drive-through that's along Wendover would be a brand new out parcel and building. So one is kind of an adaptive reuse of the bank, and the other is a brand new drive-through.
Okay. I don't have any additional questions at this time.
I have one for you, Dave. Was the trees issue ever finalized? And that's, I believe it's the marking of, and it's only at the back of the property and the street trees, I believe. The conservation of those. I mean, it was a minor comment. I'm reluctant,
As
but
far as I know, it's been addressed. There's no outstanding issues that I'm aware of.
okay.
So as far as I know, there's all those outstanding items that were carried through and have been addressed. Like I said, I'm not aware of any new ones or old ones that are still outstanding.
And nobody said they want to give up the drive-through, right? Just to be perfectly clear.
Yeah, so this petition was on course for a decision. It was deferred. I know the petitioner is still working with the community to try to establish some common ground and common beneficial outcomes that everybody can hopefully agree on. But again, it needed to come back through this juncture. Regardless, it goes to decision on July 18th or sometime later, in the coming months. But I know they are still working with the community to try to get some beneficial outcomes for everybody. Those would be presented as potential changes after zoning committee. So right now, all we're considering is what's in front of us. I don't know what some of those outcomes are, and they may also be outcomes that are just agreements between the project team and the community and won't be a zoning commitment, which is not uncommon in those situations either. But like I said, for now, it needs to come back through this venue, and then we'll decide, the petitioner will decide when it's ready to move forward to a decision.
Correct. And last update I heard was that nothing had been resolved or put in stone yet on that side, on that front. So we are
That
making
was
this.
that was the last I had heard as well. It's been a little while since I've gotten an update, but that was the last I heard. They're still trying to work together on some outcomes.
Very well. Entertain a motion at this point. We have to keep moving. There is the statement that the previous zoning committee used, if anyone wishes.
Well, the previous zoning committee denied this ultimately.
Correct.
I'm not sure I feel.
Move to deny, Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
Hold on.
Yep. I'll tell you what, I can entertain the second while she's looking to be specific.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend denial of petition number 2021079 as it appears before us.
Commissioner Russell, second.
Moved by Samuel, seconded by Russell. I'll go to the roll call. Commissioner Gaston.
Nay.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Samuel.
I'm sorry, aye.
Okay, good deal. Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well.
And just, I keep forgetting, again, I'm still warming up, but
Yep.
the petition is found
As
to
it
be
appears.
consistent with the Independence Boulevard area plan. However, we find this petition to not be reasonable in the public interest based on the information from the staff analysis and the public hearing, and because additional EDEE drive-through at this location does not support environmental sustainability policies contained in the Charlotte 2040 plan, and the site can achieve the goals 1, 5, and 8 without drive-through.
So
And
that,
just to, yeah, we got that, captured that on our end, just to confirm that the statement about the Independence Boulevard area plan was from the previous land use policy. This would just be, it's found to be consistent with the 2040 policy map. So just want to change that language, but we'll take care of that on our end.
I see.
Thank
So
you.
the denial passes 5-1. And continuing our march, we're going to number 16, rezoning petition 2021 139 by Boulevard at 1800 Central.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think we need to hear from the minority vote on that one.
Oh,
Yes,
you're absolutely
thank you.
correct.
That's correct.
My
Yeah, I was just getting ready to.
Right.
I was hoping you'd pass me by on that.
It's relevant. Keep in mind, this is a key way that we can send information about these decisions to city council. So,
Right.
Commissioner.
I believe I've talked to. I believe that this would provide a diverse and resilient economic opportunity as well as safe and equitable mobility. I know that the two proposed businesses going in there would be beneficial for the community. Yeah, and it fits and is consistent with the 2040 policy map. Is that enough?
Yes, thank you. We'll capture that in the minority report.
Thank you.
Good one, Commissioner Gaston. Thank you. All right, back to 2021-139 Boulevard at 1800 Central LLC. Holly.
Thank you. This petition is approximately 0.69 acres located on the southeast intersection of Central Avenue, Ncdot Street, east of the plaza. The existing zoning is B2 PED, so general business pedscape overlay, and it is proposing to go to B2 PED optional, so general business pedscape overlay optional. The 2040 policy map recommends community activity center on this site, so it is consistent with that policy map proposal. This petition, although it's not conventional, it converted to originally being a conventional petition recommending TOD to a conditional to give an optional provision as it relates to parking. So the optional provision is to set the minimum parking standard to 1 parking space per 600 square feet for all non-residential uses. That includes EDEE uses, which would typically be 1 per 125 square feet. So it just allows greater flexibility in that regard. Like I said, it is consistent with the 2040 policy map. Staff recommends approval of this petition, and I will be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And I'll just say an organization that I serve on the board for, Plaza Midwood Merchants Association, has been in frequent communication with this petitioner and feels this was appropriate from their perspective. Just a little addition that I was privy to in the process of this going through the system. Any questions or comments from commissioners or staff?
I have a question. Again, we see this need to add parking minimums, and just so everybody knows anything about me, I hate parking minimums. I think they're a complete waste of space, and they add nothing to the value of the building. They add nothing to the value of the neighborhood, and it essentially just adds a space that you just have to walk through that serves no purpose. So I'm just trying to understand, why did they come up with the 1 to 600 parking minimum, which I think is actually higher than what the new zoning calls for.
I don't think it does for this. Our understanding is they needed this, just not to speak for staff, but I know when they came to the Merchants Association, they asked us for a reduction in their parking requirement because there was I'll let staff answer, but
you're on the right track. Yes,
exactly.
this actually
you're
does
correct.
decrease the required parking that they would typically have to have given the uses. So typically for EDEE uses, you would have 1 parking space for 125 square feet. This just standardizes it so that it's 1 parking space per 600 square feet so that they aren't required to build additional parking if they were to try to accommodate more eating, drinking, entertainment establishments in the existing building.
Okay, so this is actually a reduction in parking due to
Correct.
I misunderstood the phrasing of that. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second, Commissioner Barbie.
Having reviewed the petition and can this be hold on. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021139 as it appears before us.
Properly moved by Samuel, seconded by Barbie. I'll go to the roll call. Commissioner Gaston,
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey,
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie,
Aye.
Commissioner Samuel,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
Chair also votes in the affirmative. That gives us a 6-0 result. Moving on to item number 17, rezoning petition 2021-211 by Legacy Construction Unlimited. Is Claire here or is Dave covering there?
That'd be me.
Excellent.
Yep. Let's give a second for the slides to pull back up.
Nope, sorry. I
No,
read
no
fast.
I think we're in between decks on this one, so.
Oh, yes, we are. Yes. So am I, now that you mentioned that. Thank you.
Sorry about the delay. I'll just waiting for the power. We have to break the PowerPoint up into different chunks just because it's so large, it'll crash everything. So I'm just waiting for one of these next decks to load up. Sometimes they get a little finicky.
Understood.
I think you should sing to us while we wait.
Got a guitar handy, Dave?
Well, you won't get that from me tonight. Still dealing with a head colds.
But that does mean another night. I heard that was the gate was left open.
Yeah.
Never rule anything out.
Open offer.
All right, there we go. Looks like we're up and running and I don't have to sing. Fantastic. Win-win for everybody. All right, so 2021-211, it's 0.35 acres on Siegel Ave, just off Van Every Street. Also, you have McCadden Street that kind of wraps back around the site. Next slide. Next slide. So the site's currently zoned I2 industrial, and the proposed zoning is for UR2 conditional. The 5-year vested rights request has been since removed, so that no longer applies. 2040 policy map does recommend this for a neighborhood 2 place type. Next slide. The proposal would be for up to 10 single-family attached townhouse units. That'd be separated into 2 buildings, so 5 in each. It comes out at about 28.6 dwelling units per acre. Maximum building height would be 40 feet. Does propose a minimum 5-foot sidewalk and 8-foot planting strip along Van Every Street. This was what was proposed at the hearing. That's since been changed as well. Upgraded to I think a 6 and 8 along those streets. We'll get into that in just a moment. Notes also that the wall facing Siegel Avenue that's shielding the private driveway would be constructed with similar materials as the primary structure. Also softened with low shrubs and enhanced landscaping. Does propose an 8-foot sidewalk and 8-foot planting strip along Siegel Avenue. And also primary building materials would be wood and or hardy board resembling traditional wood siding. They also have secondary building materials proposed that could be combinations of brick, stone, stucco, cemented fiber, etc. Vinyl would be only allowed on things like handrails, windows, soffits, door trims. Concrete masonry units not architecturally finished would also be a prohibited building material. Corner end units would have a porch or stoop that wraps around the front and side, so that kind of presents a little bit of a front element towards those streets. Stoops and porches would also form a predominant feature of the building design. located along Van Every and/or Siegel Avenue as applicable. Private open space would be met through rooftop terraces, balconies, and other means that would comply with the zoning ordinance provisions for open space. Next slide. So the changes since the hearing, as mentioned, those 5-foot sidewalks that were shown on McCadden and Van Every have been upgraded to 6-foot sidewalks. That meets the ordinance requirement. Still have the 8 and 8 along Siegel Avenue being the more prominent frontage. Also notes that the petitioner does intend to use a payment in lieu for the tree save area. That would be about 15% of the site. That would be an option, would be fee in lieu for that. So next slide. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. There's, I think, still 1 or 2 items. Let me look at the staff analysis again real quick. Just under tree save data, I think it does say that the payment in lieu is not an option for sites located in a wedge. I believe that has since been resolved. There was some confusion about this being in a transit area. So I believe that has been resolved after some conversations with our urban forestry staff. So that's an issue that's no longer outstanding. So that's been addressed, and that would be just the only item. Looks like that's out. There's just some technical revisions for removing an existing fire hydrant and calling that out for clarity, and then a transportation item for adding a conditional note to dedicate some right of way off of Siegel Avenue. But all items that should be easily addressed by the petitioner heading into decision. Outside of that, no other major issues. And again, staff does recommend approval. It is consistent with the 2040 policy map, and we'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. That is not the current petition okay, there we go. Thank you. I was going to say, any questions, commissioners?
No question, just a comment. This is the type of development that we need to see more of in Charlotte. I think this is very well done to get that many units on such a small space and do it very well.
Well said, and I'll reference, we all should have gotten an email, at least I did right before, pointing out that the Belmont Neighborhood Association has come out in support of this. So to be able to meet both of those goals, we have an accomplishment here, I think.
This is Commissioner Barbie. I move to approve.
Just one question, sorry.
Go ahead.
For our fake Claire here. Is it an omission from staff or the petitioner that there are no notes from the community meeting? I see the notification that was sent and I see who was in attendance, but there is no documentation stating the conversation had during the meeting. Just a point of inquiry. Proceed.
No, there's no documentation on the plan itself or in the staff report.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so there is notice included in the, no, I'm online. I'm digging in. And I noticed that there was no notes in terms of discussion from the community meeting. There is a list of attendees. There is the notice that is required, but there is no discussion notes from that meeting.
So the meeting report doesn't have any details.
Correct.
Okay. I believe we do have the representatives for the petition online. If you want to ask any further, information or get any further information on that, that's not something I was aware of till you just mentioned. I'll have to take a look, but there may be some reason for that. But yeah, I think they'd probably be the best to ask that question too.
Commissioner Samuel, do you have a question for the petitioner?
I do not, but I will note if we can have that prior to council vote uploaded to the petition documents. Proceed, Commissioner Barbie, please.
Thank you. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-211 as it appears before us, and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Commissioner Russell, second.
Moved by Barbie, seconded by Russell. I'll move to the roll call. Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey,
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie,
Aye.
Commissioner Samuel,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye, enthusiastically.
The chair votes aye as well. Passes unanimous at 6-0. Moving on to, whoops, again, switching between lots of number 18, I believe. Yes, rezoning petition 2021-234 by Matt Gallagher. And looks like we have another one for Dave.
Thank you. Yes, 2021-234, it's just about 7.5 acres. It's on the east side of Oneida Road and west of Citadel Place, just north of I-85. Next slide.
Getting there. Back to you, Dave. I think. Or
Yeah,
no?
I'm just.
Oh, I
yeah,
see.
hoping we can
Sorry,
get
it
through.
was the same
No,
thing.
we're
You're
just-
right.
Yeah, seems to be continuing to act up a little bit on us here, so I'm not sure.
If you are comfortable, we can continue presenting, sadly, from this perspective. Holly is going to take over the remaining of the presentation so we don't have any more errors. So we can continue, or we can wait for her to take over the PowerPoint to do full presenter. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll wait for a moment.
So Dave, on the point of the 5-year vested rights, on most of these, I understand staff has requested elimination of that. Is that correct? Or are we?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, unless it's, fairly large, complex mixed-use project or a large project that is going to take multiple years to develop out. So.
Something that might take 5 years to develop anyway, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we have any of the previous slides available for this one? We can just start on that zoning slide. Okay. So 2021-234 is currently zoned R3. Proposed zoning is for R8 conditional. That's single family residential up to 8 dwelling units per acre. Next slide. The 2040 policy map recommends the neighborhood 1 place type for this site. Next slide. proposal for this petition is for up to 50 single-family attached residential units at a density of 6.88 units per acre. Max building height is 40 feet. Ingress and egress would be off of both Oneida Road and Citadel Place. It does propose a 6-foot sidewalk and 8-foot planting strip along both of those road frontages, as well as medium residential public streets with an internal pedestrian network to serve the site. Proposed on-street parking spaces would be provided. And all corner and end units, again, in this petition facing a public or private street, would provide blank wall provisions that limit the maximum blank wall expanse to 10 feet. Visual impacts of garage doors visible from public or private streets would be minimized through architectural treatments such as carriage-style hardware, translucent windows, or shed roofs. Does limit to 4 units or fewer in a single building. And also possible amenity areas and stormwater facilities would contain at least one of the following: a tot lot, a fire pit area, pavilion or picnic tables, enhanced landscaping or seating areas, or other similar features. Next slide. So changes since the hearing, there was a commitment to provide enhanced screening around the possible stormwater facility. We would continue to coordinate with our stormwater staff. I believe they have some specific planning recommendations and requirements around those areas. So we'll continue to work with them as we go through the process of rezoning and permitting, and also provided a note that stated the petitioner would acknowledge concerns about diesel powered equipment during constructions and would make good faith efforts to employ contractors using diesel equipment meeting EPA Tier 4 standards during construction where possible. Those were the changes since the hearing. Next slide. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. There's some outstanding items related to site and building design to resolve. That would mainly be an item. Actually, they've all been addressed. Looking back through the plan, that was probably just an error on our part, not carrying over that recommendation or cleaning up that recommendation just to say recommends approval. No outstanding issues that I'm seeing in the staff analysis. It is consistent with the recommendation for neighborhood 1 place type in this area. And we'll be happy to take any questions you might have on this one.
Any questions? Dave, I understand there were the specific questions I believe you mentioned about the stormwater, and it sounds like a lot of that was already addressed, if I read the report right, correct?
So there are no major stormwater issues that are outstanding for the project. I know there were some general stormwater concerns that were brought up at the hearing. From what I understand, our stormwater staff was going to attend, I believe, a community meeting on this item for folks that had questions about there was a recent stormwater improvement project in the area. So I believe they're going to go out and speak with the community on what was done and what improvements were made and how that stormwater project should help stormwater concerns overall in that general area. And like I said, I believe that's something that they're going to reach out to the folks that had questions on that. And that was, again, directly from our stormwater folks. But no outstanding issues, particularly with this petition. But again, they're going to try to address the community and share information that would hopefully alleviate larger concerns about stormwater in that community.
Good to hear, and I commend the recognition of the construction issues with the diesel and everything. That's a nice addition. If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Commissioner Barbie, I'll be happy to make the motion.
Go right ahead.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-234 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Commissioner Harvey, second.
Properly moved by Barbie, seconded by Harvey. I'll move to the roll call. Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Samuel.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well, passing 6-0. Moving on to item 19, rezoning petition 2021-243 by KEH Properties LLC. And that's another one for Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2021-243. It's just under, it's actually just 0.15 acres on the corner of Hawthorne Lane and Kennan Street, just south of Parkwood Avenue. Next slide. So the current property is currently zoned R22 MF. The proposed zoning is for MUD optional. The proposal itself, or excuse me, the policy map, next slide, does recommend neighborhood 1 for this area. Next slide. So the petition is to maintain an existing building that serves currently as an existing EDE at the corner of Hawthorne and Kennan. It would be for a potential expansion of that not to exceed, it's now 4,000 square feet. It was initially proposed at 6,000. There have been changes since the hearing that dropped that down to 4,000 square feet. Limit building height to 40 feet, prohibit uses like gas stations, car washes, adult establishments, and an accessory drive-in window. Also proposes optional provisions related to preserving just the existing parking behind the building and then allowing renovations and expansions for parking, screening, and sidewalks, but not to add any additional parking or meet new additional parking requirements. Does restrict outdoor uses from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Access via driveway connection to Hawthorne Lane, and then notes that parking will not be required, but the petitioner may retain that existing parking set forth in the optional provisions. Does provide a 6-foot sidewalk on the back of curb on Kennan and Hawthorne, generally shown on the site plan. That would be triggered when the building would be expanded by a certain percentage. The sidewalk on Kennan is improved. The curb cut on that street would also be removed as generally shown on the plan. Right now along Kennan, there's just kind of an existing driveway cut that they would take out and curb that in. And that can go to the next slide. So changes since the hearing was mainly to address those outstanding issues. We did again have some communications with the petitioner about trying to get the streetscape improvements worked into the petition, which we've done. That reduction to the 4,000 square feet from 6,000 total square feet for any possible building expansion. Did add some notes that the ordinance requirement would be, again, capped at 40 feet in height, and notes stating that the petitioner may increase the size of the building, add an additional floor square footage to the building subject to ordinance requirements and also subject to a limitation to 40 feet in height. So just tried to get a little bit more dialed in on what the general outcomes would be. But the main intent of the petition is to maintain the existing building and the existing restaurant that's there, allow them to have some room to expand and grow and put some additional square footage potentially on the building while not having to provide additional parking and meet some of those requirements that could render it a bit of a challenge and not as feasible of a site to continue that use. We do have some outstanding items that I believe we still need to have addressed. It's mainly just some technical revisions, just making sure that we just want to clearly label some of those building setback lines along the property so we know where any expansions would occur if they tear the building down, where a new building would go, just to make sure there's adequate space to those residential uses next door. We do have some transportation items that need to get addressed. A lot of it is for notes and call outs on the project, just to clean some of that up and address some of those outstanding issues. Won't really change the nature or outcome of the project in any way, but just some items that we need to get clarification on and address prior to that decision in a few weeks. But staff does recommend approval. It is consistent with the neighborhood 1 place type, and some of you may scratch your head and go, well, how is a potential EDE consistent with a neighborhood 1 place type? Neighborhood 1 requirements do, or place type does allow for adaptive reuse of existing buildings just like this to maintain these types of uses and foster these types of uses in our communities. So this neighborhood 1 place type would see that adaptive reuse of the building. Like I said, it's already existing. So this is just kind of allowing this use to continue in this location, or if a new use wanted to come in, it would still fit within the parameters of that neighborhood 1, which is really that neighborhood serving kind of retail or EDE use. So it is deemed consistent with that place type. So be happy to take any questions that you might have on this one.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions? I would call this out as a good use of to Commissioner Russell's point of a small business and And while it might not be historic, it's nice to see some preservation in our communities.
Yep, kudos to developer.
Anyone care to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Samuel.
Samuel, yes, thank you. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement, I move that we approve petition number. Holly, my screen is completely blank. I know we're on 202124
243.
243. Thank
Yeah,
you.
243.
I think I completed my motion, but my screen is completely blank now.
Oh.
I may log out and hop back in.
This is Commissioner Barbie. I'll second.
Okay. Let me run the vote and then we'll let you jump out and back in. Properly moved by Samuel, seconded by Barbie. I'll move to the roll call vote. Commissioner Samuel.
Aye.
Perfect. Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
I enthusiastically.
And the chair votes aye enthusiastically as well. That is 6-0 and passes. We will give Commissioner Samuel or Chair Samuel an opportunity to get logged back on, but in the meantime, I will prepare us for item number 20, rezoning petition 2021-246 by MPV Properties. And that's John. Let's hit it.
Okay, it's approximately 1.5 acres on the east side of Providence Road, north of Pineville Matthews Road and south of Beverly Crest. It's currently zoned R3 single family residential and they are requesting O1 office conditional. The 2040 policy map recommends neighborhood 1. They are proposing up to 16,400 square feet for an office or medical office uses. Access would be from Providence Road, would widen or install a right-hand turn lane on Providence Road into the site. It will work with CDOT and Ncdot to make sure that the existing U-turn bulb at Springs Farm Lane will continue to function. Installs a 12-foot multi-use path and 8-foot planting strip along the frontage, and then provides trees and shrubs within the setback between the building and the multi-use path. Installs 18-foot Class C buffers along the northern property line and eastern property line and south property line abutting those residential uses, and provides a 6-foot solid fence along the north property line, and that fence would not be allowed to reduce the width of that buffer. And then provides architectural standards that relate to the percentage of windows for the facade facing Providence Road, masonry materials, roof design, blank walls, and the like. There's a closer view of the site plan that you can see. There have not really been many changes since the public hearing other than to address all the outstanding issues. Staff recommends approval of the petition. It is inconsistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation for neighborhood 1. Petition could facilitate comprehensive plan goals 1 and 5 and provides access to office and medical office uses. It's located 300 feet north of the Katz bus route 14 stop. Constructs a multi-use path along Providence Road frontage and installs trees and landscaping behind that path to enhance the pedestrian network. Constructs a right turn lane into the site. It is an infill parcel on a major thoroughfare, and the proposed office use provides a transition between the single-family homes to the north and the west to the more intensive apartment uses to the south. It installs an 18-foot Class C buffer abutting the residential and provides that 6-foot tall fence along the northern property line and locates the building on the south side of the parcel away from those single-family homes. It limits the building height to 45 feet, which is just 5 feet more than the maximum allowed in single-family zoning, and then limits the size of the building to 16,400 square feet for those uses, medical and general office uses. It would revise the recommended place type from neighborhood 1 to commercial. I'll take any questions.
Commissioners, any questions?
If there are none, this is Commissioner Barbie. I'll make a motion to approve.
Go.
Commissioner Gaston,
Thank you.
I second it. Sorry.
It's okay. Moved by Barbie, seconded by Gaston. Go ahead and make your.
Thank you. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-246 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Very well. Looks like we don't have Kiba on this yet, but if she jumps in time, we'll go back to her. Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
Commissioner Samuel. Still don't see her. All right. And the chair votes aye. We'll pass that at 5-0. Then that brings us to.
Holly, can you pull Kiba back in?
I see. I was gonna.
She's in now as a panelist. Sorry, I can't
Okay.
view anything when I'm presenter, so I apologize for that.
Oh.
Okay.
Kiba, real quick, can I close out the voting on 2021-246?
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. That passes 6-0. Thank you. And now moving on to 2021-248 by Embry with.
Yes, thank you. This is approximately 7.02 acres located on the northwest intersection of North Tryon Street and Atondo Avenue, east of West 32nd Street. The current zoning is I2 General Industrial. The proposed zoning is MUD CD, Mixed Use Development Conditional. The 2040 policy map recommends the manufacturing and logistics place type at this site. The petition is inconsistent with the 2040 policy map place type recommendation for manufacturing and logistics. This petition proposes a residential community of up to 410 multifamily dwelling units with a density of 58.4 dwelling units per acre. They do limit the maximum building height to 90 feet. Access to the site will be via Atondo Avenue. They are providing a buffered bike lane along North Tryon Street. They're providing an 8-foot planting strip and an 8-foot sidewalk along the site's frontages. They are dedicating a 30-foot right-of-way from the center line of Atondo and dedicating a 40-foot right-of-way from the center line of North Tryon Street. Some of the architectural details that the development of the site will adhere to the TOD CC section 15.2E for building articulation. Buildings will be placed to present a front or side facade to all network streets. And the ventilation grates located at the first floor level in the building facade will be decorative. So there have been some changes after the hearing concerning the transportation outstanding issues. We did get a revised site plan from the petitioner today, and they have addressed all of Ncdot's outstanding issues. So the petition, like I said, is inconsistent with the 2040 policy map place type recommendation. But we sort of believe that this petition is aligned with the growing multifamily residential uses in the area and along the North Tryon Street corridor. So staff does recommend approval of this petition. Thank you.
Excellent. Any questions or comment for staff?
Yep, I have a question. So I heard that this petitioner is including a buffered bike lane along North Tryon in front of their property. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And does that bike lane then turn north and follow Atondo Avenue, or am I reading the plan wrong?
I believe I'll pass that one to our colleagues in Ncdot.
I hope they don't all speak at once.
Recognizing anyone from CDOT who wants to pick that
Anybody.
up.
They
Trying
have
to get
long
unmuted here.
CDOT.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. This is Patrick Monroe, CDOT. The petitioner will be installing buffer bike lane as well on Atondo along their frontage. There's currently not bike lanes on Atondo, but they will build out start building the network to that side. There's also an existing CIP project on North Tryon that's installing the buffer bike lanes that you'll see matched in this project. So they're kind of extending that network further down on Tryon.
And which side is that coming from? Is it coming from north toward Uptown or away from Uptown?
That's to the right of this project, so away from Uptown.
Oh, wait, so it's on the other side of North Tryon, opposite of this apartment or this rezoning?
It's on the other side of Atondo.
Oh, okay. But then you said there's a CNIP project that's bringing buffer bike lanes along North Tryon.
Yes, so that's the project I'm referring to. So that's on the other side of Atondo. That's the city project. This project is building the buffer bike lanes along their frontage of Tryon and along their frontage of Atondo.
Oh, okay. So it's coming toward Uptown, and then they're just bringing it across Atondo further down.
Correct.
And what's the time frame on that?
The time frame will be based on the developer's schedule, so they're required to install all their transportation improvements prior to their first CO for the building. So
No, I mean
whenever they need to get that CO, they're required to have all those improvements in place and in the ground.
No, I was referring to the time frame for the CIP project for the
That project is currently in the late stages of design. Give me 1 second. I may be able to give you a time on that. I believe it's coming in the next year or so to go to construction.
Okay. Well, I'll leave it with this. I do have some real concerns with yet again adding another 410 living spaces and slap in the middle of a manufacturing district. While I do love the protected bike lanes on both Atondo and North Tryon, I'm a little conflicted right now. I think that's a great and needed amenity for both roads, but I'm just concerned about placing that many residents in a manufacturing and logistics zone and a floodplain, because that creek floods fairly regularly.
And just to follow up on your question on the Tryon bike lanes, that is currently under construction. The location and relocation of utilities is currently underway. So construction of the bike lanes will follow up shortly after those utilities are relocated.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Don't see any. I had one on the and Commissioner Russell touched on it. That stream, I'm sure there's a way to do this correctly. Can anybody give me any input on how we do that and take that as the potential risk it could become into consideration?
Yeah, so, our stormwater staff has looked at this and, right now we're just dealing with the entitlements, but if
Correct.
this were to get approved, you know, stormwater and land development would need to see approval from the state DEQ and the Corps of Engineers for relocating and or any impacts to the channel. You know, there would also be post-construction buffer disturbance and approval from stormwater with potential mitigations for a new buffer. You know, and there are several types of mitigation for approval, but typically they see either revegetation of the buffer or a mitigation fee. So our stormwater folks are aware of this.
Okay. And so we're looking at whatever happens here will be clearly to our stormwater standards. I mean, the parts
Yes,
of
both the
city are-
state,
right.
State and city, yes.
Perfect. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that all that, and I know that during the hearing, there was some comments about brownfield and all that. From my experience doing this, I know we usually are all over the top of that. So I will not ask those questions again, but know that we're watching, I guess, and paying attention to those issues. Any other comments or questions? I will entertain a motion if anyone is feeling so motivated.
Mr. Chair, I hate to keep making all the motions, so I'll encourage my other commissioners to do so, but I do want to keep us moving along so we're on time. So having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-248 as it appears before us, and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Gaston. I second that motion.
Thank you. Moved by Barbie, seconded by Gaston. I'll move to the vote. Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Samuel. Commissioner Samuel.
Aye, thank you.
Commissioner Russell.
Nay.
Okay, we have a nay, and the chair will vote aye as well. We are 5-1 on that. And can we get a minority statement or?
Yep, two items. One, such a large residential project in a manufacturing and logistics place type, and then concerns with flooding from the creek.
Sufficient, Dave?
Yes, that works. We'll capture that. Yep.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Moving on to petition number, oh, I'm on the wrong app again. Item number 22, rezoning petition number 2021-254 by Joseph Horton. And that is back to John.
Thank you.
And I will say real quick, after this one, we will stop and make a quick test of the water and see if everyone feels like they're up to continuing. Otherwise, we will have a quick discussion about continuing this meeting on a later date. Go ahead, John.
So this is 2.18 acres on the southwest intersection of Galleria Boulevard and Monroe Road, south of Sardis Road North. It is, as you can see, an existing EDEE use. If you go back 2 slides, Holly, please. Yeah, that's good. If you notice on the south side of the building, there's an existing driveway that circles around the back of the building where the cursor is, and that driveway is mainly what we're going to be discussing. You notice the width of that driveway. All right, go ahead. It is currently zoned neighborhood service and proposing neighborhood services site plan amendment. The policy map recommends community activity center for the site. You'll notice so it proposes to keep the existing EDE in place, and allows the addition of a drive-through service lane for the existing EDE use. It would not change the site driveway and parking layout. It does provide right-of-way dedication and notes the future Lynx Silverline corridor along Monroe Road, and then establishes an 8-foot planting strip and constructs a 12-foot multi-use path along Monroe Road, as well as constructing the curb ramps at Galleria Boulevard. So that new drive-through lane would be within that, basically the drive that's existing, and they would just be marking it off to accommodate that drive-through window that they would be installing in that portion of the building where the arrow is pointing, and just below where it says existing EDEE. So essentially, there's really nothing that they have to change with the building or the site in order to accommodate the proposed drive-through lane. Everything else would stay as is. Next slide. Here's a little closer view of the site plan, just again illustrating where that proposed drive-through lane would be. Staff recommends approval of the petition. There's no outstanding issues. It's consistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation for Community Activity Center. And I will take any questions.
Who has a comment about this one?
Chair, you know I have a comment about it. I have a comment about all of them.
Go right ahead.
So two things that absolutely stick out to me. Number one, as we referenced in an earlier rezoning petition, we pulled out our environmental statement for the one on Wendover and did not approve the use of having drive-throughs there. And now we've got the same situation. So I think we need to be consistent and standing against this one. Just note to everybody, I do not like drive-throughs in any way, shape, or form. The second part of this that is very concerning to me is that I notice on the plan here that it's going to be right next to this Lynx Silverline alignment. Now you can, whatever you think about when that's going to happen and if it'll happen, it is on a mass transit line, but yet we're going to add a drive-through and even more automobile intensive use to a place that's going to have access to a transit station. So I think just those inconsistencies alone are enough for us to vote this down. Thank you.
Well said, Commissioner Russell. Anyone else have a comment, question, or motion? I understand we might have lost Kiba again. The power has gone out at her house. So we're down to just 5 of us. Any other comments? If not, I'm going to ask for a motion. I do think Commissioner Russell's comments are solid.
I would like to move to deny.
Do we have a second on a denial? No second. Going once. Going twice. Going 3 times. Sorry, that motion dies on. We still need to make a motion one way or the other.
This is Commissioner Darby. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-254 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
This is Commissioner Gaston. I second that.
All right. Moved by Barbie and seconded by Gaston. I understand Kiba is working to join us. Just FYI. I will move to the roll call. Just trying to make sure I keep up with everybody in these times. I'll move to the roll call. Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Nay.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
The chair votes nay. And just looking to see if we have a shot at getting Kiba in here. Don't think so. Commissioner Russell, my feelings mirror yours on this. If you have anything to add to it, or if you wish to restate anything.
Nope, I will stand on my previous comments.
Dave, is that sufficient?
Yeah, that's sufficient. So it was a 3-2 vote, correct?
Correct. That's a 3-2 vote.
Okay, so this will automatically then roll over to our next meeting.
I believe so.
Because it didn't get the requisite
Four.
four
Yeah.
votes.
Yeah. So that's a deferral effectively, correct?
Correct.
All right. These are the rules we work within. I will take this moment, since we are getting ready to bump into our 8:30 meeting end time. Dave, is there anything that needs to be pulled out, or what is your perspective on our ability to get through these last few in 15 minutes?
I don't think we'd necessarily get through them in 15 minutes, but I feel like we could probably work through them. That we've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 left. It probably another 45 minutes. We can probably get through them.
If staff is willing and our fellow commissioners are willing, I'm willing to stay here and get through these. Any questions or concerns from our fellow commissioners?
No, I need Dave to send me a salad next time.
I had
Next
one
time.
while we were here.
Next time we'll be in person. We will
Benefit of
get
home
you that
meetings,
salad.
you know?
No, I'm
Okay.
okay with pushing through. I don't want to make our next agenda longer.
Exactly. Anyone object? Going once, going twice? All right. Moving on to rezoning petition number, let me just check before I completely move off that, make sure. All right. Moving to rezoning petition number item number 23, rezoning petition 2021-258 by RD University Oaks.
Great. Thank you. This is approximately 64.05 acres located along the north side of University City Boulevard, east of Neal Road, west side of Interstate 85, and just south of IBM Drive. The current zoning is RE2 research. The proposed zoning is R12 MFCD, multifamily residential conditional. Next slide. The Charlotte Future 2040 Policy Map recommends the Community Activity Center place type. The petition is consistent with the Future 2040 Policy Map place type at this site. This petition proposes to develop a residential community of up to 450 multifamily apartments and up to 150 townhome units divided into 2 development areas. It installs a minimum 8-foot wide planting strip and a minimum 12-foot multi-use path along Neal Road. They are constructing an additional southbound left turn lane on Neal Road with 190 feet of storage, utilizing the existing pavement width where available, and to ensure the northbound and southbound left turn signal phasing run concurrently. Access A on University City Boulevard will be a median divided entrance. Access B on Neal Road will be a full movement vehicular access point. And access C on University City Boulevard will be a right in, right out only. They are constructing a westbound right turn lane on University City Boulevard with 100 feet of storage. And constructing an eastbound left turn lane on University City Boulevard with a 250 foot of storage. as well as a westbound U-turn lane on University City Boulevard with 225 feet of storage. They do commit to dedicate and convey to Mecklenburg County for future greenway purposes the 100-foot buffer on this site. They provide an access easement to the future greenway trail with an 8-foot sidewalk, and they will install a ADA compliant bus waiting pad on Neal Road. Next slide. And the petitioner is committed to installing a traffic signal at the intersection of University City Boulevard and proposed entry number 1 with a 2-stage Z crossing for pedestrian. Those were some of the changes after the hearing. Otherwise, they've addressed all their outstanding issues. Like I said earlier, this petition is consistent with the 2040 policy map type recommendation of Community Activity Center, and staff recommends approval of this petition. Thank you.
Excellent. Any questions, comments? Commissioner Russell? No, I'm kidding. If no one has a question or comment, I will entertain a motion on this one. It's a big project, but I do feel it's part of the development our city needs.
This is Commissioner Harvey. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend for approval of petition number 2021-258.
And the consistency statement?
Oh, I'm sorry. As it appears before us. Sorry.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
Commissioner Barbie, I'll second.
Moved by Harvey, seconded by Barbie. I'll go to the roll call. Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Samuel. Welcome back.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. That is unanimous. And I hope it's not too dark where you are, Kiba. Moving on to item number 24, rezoning petition 2021-259 by Integra Land Company. Michael, back to you.
Thank you. This is approximately 3.57 acres bound by the north side of North Tryon Street, east side of West 26th Street, the west side of West 27th Street, and the south side of North Church Street. The current zoning is I2, general industrial. The proposed zoning is MUD CD, which is mixed use conditional. The Charlotte Future 2040 policy map recommends the neighborhood center place type at this site. The petition proposes to develop a residential community of up to 350 multifamily dwelling units and at least 2,500 square feet of non-residential uses. They do limit the building height to 75 feet. They have a list of prohibitive uses such as adult establishments, auction sales, automotive service stations, boarding houses, bed and breakfast, building material sales, car washes, group homes, seasonal sales, warehousing within an enclosed building. The vehicular access to the site will be from West 27th Street. They are providing 8-foot sidewalks and 8-foot planting strips along all 4 public street frontages. They're providing 300 square feet of open space along North Church Street with hardscape and landscape improvements. All the principal and accessory buildings abutting a network required public or private street will be comprised of a minimum of 20% of that building's entire facade facing the network streets using brick, natural stone, synthetic equivalent, and stucco. All the ground floor entrances will include direct pedestrian connections between street-facing doors and adjacent sidewalks. And buildings exceeding 120 feet in length shall include modulations of the building massing facade plane, and modulations will be a minimum of 10 feet wide and shall project or recess a minimum of 6 feet extending throughout the building. Next slide. So there weren't really any changes after the public hearing, other than the petitioner has addressed all their outstanding issues. Next slide. So the petition is consistent with the 2040 policy map place type recommendation of neighborhood center. And staff does recommend approval of this petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, motions?
Yeah, just a quick question. So at least on the, maybe I just have an old agenda, but the agenda I have has the 2158 attachments under the 2059. So I wanted to know if there was, are these the only drawings of the site plan that you've shown, Michael, or is there something additional to that?
I see that.
Let's see.
The former ones have the correct links, but yeah, those links are wrong on the agenda that was sent today. I did not use those links in my review, I know.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand the scope of the building. Is the building encompassing the whole block? Because that's what it looks like.
Michael?
I just can't tell.
Yes, the building does, and you can see the open for the parking and the amenity space and the other open space there.
Okay, so it's a Texas donut with the parking
It's a
deck in the
Texas,
middle.
yes, it's a Texas donut.
Awesome.
A perfect square though this time. How about that?
Public. It's a public donut, Texas donut.
It's a Texas cronut. No. All right, now we're getting silly. All right, any other comments, questions, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Russell. And a second?
Commissioner Barbie, second.
Thank you. Moved by Russell, seconded by Barbie. Go ahead with your statement.
And this petition is found to be consistent with the 2040 policy map place type recommendation of neighborhood center based on the information from staff analysis and the public hearing.
So that's the consistency statement. Your motion should, if you roll through the chat.
Oh.
Back just a little bit. Dave dropped it in there for us.
Oh, got it. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-259.
As it appears before us, and the consistency statement as it appears before us, I believe is what you meant to say.
Correct. I'm sorry, I was reading on me.
That's all right. I understand. No. It's something we all got to get used to, and it's your first time around. Dave, did all that fit in?
Indeed.
Excellent. All right, let's move to the vote. Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Samuel.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. We are 6-0 on that one as also. Moving on to item number 25, I believe. Rezoning petition 2021-260 by Promenade Shopping Center, Inc.
Thank you.
And-
This is
Yep.
sorry.
It's all right. You're good. Sorry.
This is approximately 27.5 acres located on the southwestern corner of the intersection of Providence Road and Valentine Commons Parkway. It's north of I-45. Current zoning is CC-SPA, and proposed zoning is also CC-SPA. The 2040 policy map recommends community activity center, place type for the site. The proposal is to revise a portion of the plan to allow one restaurant with a drive-through. If you're familiar with the Promenade Shopping Center, this is the current location of the Starbucks. The overall square footage entitlements for the larger site will remain unchanged. And since the public hearing, the petitioner has addressed mostly transportation comments, incorporating the TTM, the Transportation Technical Memo, and also clarify that it's just one EDEE use that they are seeking to add the drive-through lanes to. Petition is consistent, as I mentioned, with the policy map. Staff recommends approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Russell.
This is a drive-through. You know where I'm going with it.
I was just going to say, is it different when it's adjacent to 485 within a property that you almost can't access by bus?
I would still say no, considering the fact that Valentine is undergoing $1 billion renovation to fix all of that stuff that they put there in the 90s to get it into the 21st century. So it should be ahead of the curve.
Excellent. All right. Any other comments, questions?
If there are none, this is Commissioner Barbie. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Barbie. Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Gaston. I will second that motion.
Moved by Barbie, seconded by Gaston. Go right ahead.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-260 as it appears before us, and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Very good. Going to the vote. Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Nay.
And I believe we've lost Kiva again to weather. Holly, is she waiting by chance?
I do not see her as an attendee, but I
Okay.
will continue checking.
Okay, she's been having some power issues. The chair will vote kind of reluctantly aye, but I think Russell is going to convey the message that I would like to see conveyed. So, Commissioner
Correct.
Russell.
I will point back to our environmental statements for the Planning Commission.
Dave, is that significant? Sufficient, pardon me.
Yeah, I mean, if they're consistent with the previous minority or statements or just general statements on drive-throughs by Commissioner Russell, we can carry those forward to this one if that's his wish.
Yes.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank
We
you.
are 5-1 on that one as well then. Moving on to item number 26, rezoning petition 2021-268 by THR Holdings, LLC. And that is back to Holly.
Thank you. This is just a 1/4 of an acre located at the southeast intersection of Drummond Avenue and Pinckney Avenue, south of Matheson Avenue. The current zoning is R5 and is proposing to go to R8, so it's staying under that single-family residential zoning. The policy map recommends neighborhood 1 for this site, so it is consistent with that place type recommendation. It's a conventional petition, so there's no site plan associated with this one, but staff does recommend approval. Like I said, it's consistent with the policy map, and it being on a corner lot makes an appropriate location for a slight increase in allowable density. It would also allow for the site to be subdivided into 2 lots to build out a maximum of 2 single-family homes. which is, of course, just a modest increase over the existing allowable density. I'll take any questions.
Any questions, commissioners? All right. I
Move
have
to approve.
just one comment, and then I'll let you make that motion, Will. I will say, because it's on a corner lot, wouldn't this be a prime candidate for a duplex development? And I know we can't tell the petitioner what to do or anything, but this would have been eligible for that, correct?
They could have sought that. I don't know that that would have been in line with staff recommendation. I think there were some initial concerns at the pre-submittal meeting, so increasing it to R8 seemed a more comfortable shift for the neighborhood.
Okay, and I think it's appropriate either way, but I just wanted
Right.
to get clarification on that for going forward as we continue to see these come down. Russell, did you have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Barbie, I second.
Moved by Russell, seconded by Barbie. Go ahead and take our shot at it.
This motion is found to be consistent with the 2040 policy map based on the information from staff analysis and the public hearing. And because the policy map recommends neighborhood 1 for the site, having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-268. And I know I forgot something there, Chair, so please remind me again.
As it appears before us, and the consistency statement as it appears before us.
As it appears before us in the consistency statement. Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you. You know, by next December, you'll have this down pat. Don't worry. I'm kidding. All right, moving on. Number 27, rezoning petition 2021.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr.
We
Chair,
do.
do a
We
roll
need to
call.
Oh, you're right. I didn't vote. All right, it's getting late, so we should get these done.
Don't worry, you'll have it down by next December.
Thank you. Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
And do we have Samuel back with us? I don't see her. The chair votes aye as well. We are 5-0 on approval on that one. Now, number 27, rezoning petition 2021-270 by the Drakeford Company.
All right, that would be me. Thank you. 2021-270. It's just a little bit over 4 acres on Rocky River Road, just west of East W.T. Harris Boulevard and east of the intersection with Old Concord Road. Next slide. Current zoning is R3. Proposed zoning is for UR2 conditional. Next slide. The 2040 policy map does recommend neighborhood 1 place type for this site. You can see we have neighborhood center at the intersection on both sides there as well of Rocky River and East W.T. Harris. Next slide. Proposal at the hearing was for up to 48 single-family attached townhomes. That comes in a density at about 11.74 units per acre. The limit on building height would be 50 feet. Internal network of private alleys with 6-foot sidewalks. Potential guest parking served by a private street that would access Rocky River Road. You can see that access point lined up there with the red arrows with the street across from Rocky River. Does propose a minimum 12-foot wide multi-use path, 8-foot wide planting strip along the Rocky River Road frontage. Also propose a left turn lane into the site off Rocky River Road, creating a 3-lane section there. Also prohibits concrete masonry units and not architecturally finished as an exterior building material. Does note that building facades adjacent to Rocky River will either have a front-facing facade or be screened with fencing or landscaping and provide blank wall provisions. Does limit the number of units per building to 5 or fewer. Provides a minimum 15-foot wide buffer along the property line. Zoned industrial, that would also include a fence and a minimum 10-foot wide Class C buffer. Provide amenitized open space and possible areas, amenity areas within the site that would include things, but including but not limited to seating, walkways, or paths, and enhanced landscaping. Also identify possible water quality location at the front of the site adjacent to Rocky River Road. Next slide. Changes since the hearing: did commit to install ADA curb ramps at the proposed street intersections. Also commits to providing enhanced landscaping along water quality areas, again, in coordination with our stormwater staff. Also, as notes state, the petitioner would relocate the existing storm drain infrastructure to a location to be determined during permitting as reasonably feasible and not unreasonably to delay the permitting process. That just is saying that they would continue to work with stormwater during permitting to find a existing storm drain infrastructure that's out there on the site. So there's no potential impacts, but would not delay the overall project. Just one thing to note about the buffer to the industrial. If we can go back one slide, Holly. So there's a buffer to the residential or to the industrial portion there, just to the back. One thing to note is the industrial property itself behind them does have a required 100-foot buffer. And that's part of the conditional zoning that was approved to establish that industrial site, which is the Duke Energy site. It's not a heavy industrial user, but just note that they do have a 100-foot wide buffer. That's why you see that healthy tree stand there. That would not be able to be reduced without going back through the rezoning process, since it's a condition of the site plan. So that 15-foot buffer on the townhome industrial side may look a little bit thin to some, but just want to point out that there is another 100 feet of buffer that is required to be maintained on the other side as well. So that gives us about 115 foot plus of separation with a pretty existing healthy tree stand there behind them. So just wanted to point that out to everybody. Holly, we can go to the final slide. That's not the consistency statement. Yep, thank you. Staff does recommend approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation, which I believe just include one item or two items about labeling and dimensioning the curb and gutter from center line, and also revise the plan removing existing storm drainage from the site plan that's currently showing in the multi-use path. So just some minor changes that won't affect the overall design or layout of the site. Feel that those will be resolved prior to decision on July 18th. And again, we recommend approval, and I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Questions?
I got a quick question. Can you go back to the site plan very quickly? Is the reason the road at the top here, at the, you got the 15-foot buffer, you got the houses, and then the road that's in front of it, the private alley. Is there a reason why it doesn't connect to this driveway that's just to the left of it?
Yeah, so that's private property. That's actually a parcel and it's not right of way with a road. So Duke Energy owns that.
Got it. Thank you.
So private drive, not a road. Yeah. All right. Any other questions or motion?
This is Commissioner Gaston. I make a motion to approve.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Russell, second.
Thank you. Moved by Gaston, seconded by Russell. Go right ahead.
Having reviewed the petition in consideration and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-270 and its consistency statement as it appears before us.
I think that does it. Moving on to the vote. Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
And still no Samuel. Chair votes aye as well. That goes 5-0 for approval. Moving on to item number 28, rezoning petition 2021-271 by 300 East 36 Development Holdings. And that's Holly.
Thank you. This petition is approximately 1.3 acres located on the south side of Coleman Avenue here, west of East 36th Street and east of Matheson Avenue as well. It is right along the Lynx Blue Line, as you can see. The current zoning is I1 light industrial, and the proposed zoning is go to TODUC, Transit Oriented Development Urban Center, and that is adjacent to a number of these areas already zoned TODUC or just TOD generally. The policy map recommends innovation mixed use for the site. Because of that place type recommendation, it is partially consistent with it in that the TODUC accommodates a number of mixed uses, but the innovation mixed use place type in particular allows for land uses such as light manufacturing, which would not be accommodated under TODUC. So it's partially inconsistent and partially consistent in terms of allowing for a mixture of uses. This is a conventional petition, so there is no associated site plan. It is directly it is directly along the blue line, as I mentioned, and the 36th Street station is right here. So it's well within that half-mile walk of applicability that's required for the TODUC application. It's also adjacent to a number of TODUC zonings, as I discussed. And this rezoning, if approved, would change the place type from innovation mixed use to community activity center, which would be in line with everything else that we see zoned TOD in this area. Staff does recommend approval, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Questions, anyone? I'll make one comment. This is, I will say, I think this is another comment to how the 2040 policy map is going to give us a general guidance. It still won't be parcel specific. This is clearly we will at some point very soon, if not today, want this to be community activity center to fit in with the surrounding zoning there, or a park, which would be awesome too, but that's not what's on the table today. So anyone have a motion?
This is Commissioner Barbie. I make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Barbie. Any second?
Commissioner Harvey, second.
Moved by Barbie and seconded by Harvey. Go right ahead.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-271 as it appears before us, and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Thank you. Commissioner Gaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
And checking for Kiva, Commissioner Samuel. The chair votes aye as well. That passes 5-0. Now, the last one. Thank you everyone for bearing with us. Item number 29, rezoning petition 2021-272 by Bay Bridge Group. Back to John. Thanks for hanging in with us, John.
Yep, no problem. 4.35 acres on the east side of Johnston Road, south of Carmel Chase Drive, south of Carmel Road. And you can see on the site, it's mostly vacant open space and then amenity facilities for the existing townhomes, condos that are to the north. It is currently zoned R12 MF CD, multifamily residential conditional, proposing a site plan amendment. The 2040 policy map recommends neighborhood 2 place type for the site. So the proposal would allow to 31 single-family attached dwellings on that portion of the site. The overall density would remain to be roughly 7.12 units to the acre. It would relocate the amenity open space area as a result of this petition, and limits the building height to 40 feet, committing to architectural standards for roof design, blank walls, etc. They are proposing vehicular access from Johnston Road and dedicates right away along Johnston Road as well for construction of a future multi-use path along the frontage. We'll note that since the public hearing, this is actually the site plan will be revised slightly from what was submitted for zoning committee's purposes. One of the outstanding issues was to do with the internal yards that are shown. So there's a 40-foot rear yard shown kind of in the northeast corner of the site, and I think that's a 10-foot side yard. basically those yards would be removed since it's basically an additional phase to the existing townhome development. And alternatively, because that's part of a larger site, the buffer that they're providing against the single family will need to be increased. So the petitioner, one of the things they've changed since the hearing is committing to changing that buffer from a 28-foot Class C buffer to a 50-foot buffer that would be reduced to 37.5 feet with a wall, fence, or berm. That's allowed by the zoning ordinance to be reduced in that way. Other issues since the public hearing that were noted in the staff analysis related to transportation have been resolved. There's, I think, one issue related to urban forestry that we're working with urban forestry staff to get taken care of. The staff is recommending approval of the petition, and it is consistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation for neighborhood 2 place type.
Excellent. All right. Any comments, questions? I think this was a very interesting one at the hearing and learning a little bit of the background on it and everything. I think the only thing I wish we could apply our new tree ordinance and see how it worked on this property, but this is a very cool one. Any motions? It should be the last motion of the night, probably, so.
Commissioner Barbie, I will make that motion to
You
approve.
should. You earned it.
Second, third, fourth, and fifth.
Russell seconds it.
All
Moved
right.
by Barbie, you're seconded by Russell. Go right ahead.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-272 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Magnificently well done. Commissioner Gaston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Harvey?
Aye.
Barbie?
Aye.
Russell?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. That is 5-0 approval for 2021-272. And that, as I see it, completes our agenda.
Yes, sir, it does. Yeah,
Excellent.
that's everything we've got. Just want to thank everybody for hanging in. Just a reminder, this is not our normal caseload for zoning committee meetings. We had, like I said, about 8 additional cases that we had to run back through just with that change of the policy map. So commend everybody for getting through probably one of the more challenging first meetings that we've had for commissioners rolling in July, but y'all did a fantastic job. Thank you for your hard work this evening and look forward to continuing to work with y'all as we move forward.
Excellent, thank you.
I want to make sure that Dave's comments are in the notes so that we can refer back to them
Yes.
when there's another 30-something slate.
Yes, that's a good point.
Please feel free to pull this video up. It'll be archived on our YouTube page or whatever, and you can just point back and say, you told us on July 5th. But no, it shouldn't be this full again. But yeah, just like I said, commend everybody for getting through it. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And just for point of order, I did table the voting for the vice chair vote because we had an abundance of chairs and I knew we had a tight schedule. We'll be doing that first thing at the next meeting. And with that, does anyone would anyone like to motion to retire for the evening? Close the meeting, pardon me.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
There we go.
Do I have anyone against? I think that's affirmation. I'll take it. Thank you.
Thanks,